All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Steve. Finally, we made it. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City. We are very humble and grateful that Steve Jolliffe accepted our invitation to our show. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here.
So, Steve,
after all that hassle.
That's right. Steve, so, man, the last 15 months have been weird, with the pandemic. Some people believe in the vaccine, some people don't believe. The musicians, they cannot do or go out that much. How is this? How are you holding up? How is this affecting your sanity, your family, whatever, man?
Well, like we said before, I live in the middle of nowhere, and my life is a bit like a monk's life, really. So it's been like that for a long time. So it doesn't really affect me that much. Apart from going out shopping once a week, I never really see anybody very much anyway. It's very much a matter of playing every day, composing and sight reading and a bit of painting, and that's it every day, really. Talking to the cat, of course.
Yeah. Do other musicians visit you where you live, or?
Not really.
Not really? Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you understand. It's like friends are sort of all over the world, so they're miles and miles away. But no, I don't see many people.
Yeah. Wow, man. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you started playing a flute or saxophone or any instrument by that matter?
No, not really. My father did play the piano, and my mother was keen on music. And my mother's sister was very talented. But I think we all picked it up just through necessity, really, just through necessity to express our feelings. We had a pretty rough childhood, and I think it was a way of expressing how we felt, really.
So would you say that music was kind of escape from the reality, if you will? Or?
An escape. I mean, all entertainment, I suppose, is an escape, but a necessity to express yourself, to find a medium to express yourself. That's why I started with painting. That was my first direction. And it was at art school that I started to improvise on the piano. And it grew from there, really.
Gotcha. Feel free to elaborate on when you met, Rick Davies.
That was literally when I first left art school, which was about 65 or 64. And I need to get this right. Now, what happened? Oh, I think it was an advert I found in the Melody Maker, and they were advertising for a sax player. And I went to the interview, which was just, it was about a dozen sax players all queued up there waiting to play that bit. And I played for Rick and another guy that had turned down Jimi Hendrix to play the drums, and had no thought that I'd be accepted at all. But, I was up for anything, to try anything, to see what happened. Yeah. And they said, yeah, you got the job.
Wow.
The next day, I couldn't play anything. I couldn't read music. I've been teaching myself to sight read lately, but I'm completely self-taught. Apart from, I went to Berlin to study composition, and was the first person ever accepted there that couldn't read music. But and that's where I came to meet Edgar and all that stuff. But so that's how I started with Rick, and we flew off. We caught a train to Switzerland, and they had a little residency in a bar, and they were all living in a flat opposite the bar. So we had no money, nothing to eat, and it was pretty hard times. But and then at that time I was a teenager, I guess, or just over, and nothing seemed to matter. It was just finding your way through and believing that it would all all come good.
Yeah. And then that was what's the name of the band they called Joint, I believe, right?
It's called The Joint, yeah. Rick speaks about it in his autobiography, actually, because when we split up and I went off to Germany, he went back to England and put together more ideas with some other people, and that's how Supertramp came about. So, I mean, if I'd stuck with him, obviously I'd have carried on with the Supertramp thing, but I decided that I was going to go and study music.
Yeah. So you went from UK to study music at Germany. How did you get accepted?
Well, we were making a film in Switzerland, and at the end of the film, the composer for the film said to me, you know, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, you know, I just want to learn to play Bach. You know, I'm just so astounded by what the sounds he makes. And he said, well, okay, here's the key to my flat. I live in the centre of Berlin. Just go to Berlin, and I'll see if I can get you an appointment with the Hochschule or the Conservatorium. So that's what I did. Madness. Yeah, you know, getting on a train and guards coming in with guns, you know, because the wall was up then. So you had to cross, you know, through into Berlin. Berlin was all cut off. So it was pretty strange. And I couldn't speak a word of German. So I just managed to find this flat. And in the flats in Germany, they have these people that look after all the flats and make sure everything's clean and tidy. And she was a little old lady and she couldn't speak English, but she sort of showed me into his flat. And in his flat, he had this great big Steinway Grand, and, you know, he was obviously doing well out of the film music. And I just set to, you know, same as I'm doing now, really, improvising away on the piano.
Yeah. My God, man. And then you end up forming what? You joined the blues rock band. It was called Steamhammer in between 79 and 70, right?
Well, that was after I'd met Edgar.
Okay.
I was still studying composition in Berlin at the Konservatorium, and I met Edgar at the studio there, and he was a lost end, and I'm wondering what to do. And I said, well, let's start a three-piece. You know, I always had this thing about three pieces, the triangle and all that, and improvisation has always been my thing. So he was a bit shocked. He said, you know, we can't have a band without a bass player. I said, yeah, we can. We'll do something different. And we just basically got a couple of echo chambers and just made a load of noises, really. I thought, well, it's never going to make any money. It's never going to be taken on by a record company, that's for sure. And we advertised for different drummers. We had different drummers come along, and Klaus was one of the people that came along to one of the interviews. And I'm not sure. I think maybe Edgar had known him before from somewhere, but he was quite keen to have him in to complete the three-piece. I wasn't really sure. He was quite young. He's a bit younger than me, Klaus. And but, you know, he was very good, very fast, quite unusual. So he ended up being the third part of TD.
And then, wow.
We travelled all over Germany, you know, all these little clubs. Amazing stuff going on at that time. And it was, you know, I had so much hustle in Germany with people shaking their fists at me because I had long hair and a beard and everything, you know. And the Germans were still not long after the war, really, and they still had that mentality, and they were stopping you getting on the underground and shouting Studenten at you, you know. And I just had enough, you know. I just wanted to get away. And I said to Edgar, look, I've just got to go home for a bit. So we had one last gig in Wiesbaden where I expect you heard the story where all the gear fell off the top of the car because we couldn't afford a van. We just had an estate car with stuff tied on the top, and the whole roof rack fell off. And it was when Klaus was going off to go to the toilet at the side of the motorway, he came back running with a white face saying, "There's nothing on the roof." I said, "No, everything I own is on the roof," you know. And I remember Edgar was rolling a joint in the front, you know, and his joint went everywhere. And I jumped out of the car thinking, please make this a joke. But there was nothing, not a sign of anything. And eventually we found it on the motorway, you know, everything flattened, you know, my new Mark 6, which I'd managed to buy. You know, I thought, if I'm going to get an instrument, I want the best. I mean, it'd be worth, I don't know, 30 or 40 grand now. And it was just flattened. You know, it's just a piece of pancake. A lorry had just come along and run over everything, you know. But we got to Wiesbaden, and because we've been jamming in the car with the flute and the acoustic guitar, we did the gig in Wiesbaden with just the acoustic guitar and the flute. Very stoned. I seem to remember it being quite a good gig. And then after that, I just came home.
My God, man.
You know, I went back to the UK, and then Edgar phoned me about 3 or 4 weeks later and said, "Look, I think we've got a deal now. You know, they'd got some deal with a record company in Germany. Come back, you know." And I said, "No, I don't. I'm not sure." I said, "You know, we need a bit more support." And at the meantime, I put an advert in the Melody Maker saying, you know, oh no. No battery.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can plug this in. Hold on a sec.
Yeah. Take your time and plug it in.
Yes. Battery now.
Right. So, but let's go to, so how you end up meeting Edgar? I mean, how you end up going to a studio? How you know that he was there?
Well, you know, I was always listening out for what was going on. Somebody must have told me, or somebody must have mentioned it, or I'd seen it in the paper or something or other, that they were doing electronic music in this studio.
Yeah.
And I'd always been interested in electronic music. Of course, that was in '96, mid-'60s, so there was no synthesizers as such. But it still interested me. So I thought, well, I'll go there and see what's going on. And there was a guy there doing electronic music with tapes, you know, like Music Concrete. So he's running these tapes at different speeds and, you know, it's turning them backwards and stuff like that. And Edgar was there in the studio.
Wow. Just
hanging out, basically, you know, and wondering what he's going to do next. And little did he know, his opportunity was about to arrive.
And so you got tired of living in England and so in the Germany, and I read somewhere that you didn't like the food that much, you know, because you're a vegetarian and people. You know.
I'm a very, very strong vegetarian. I cannot understand why people want to kill animals. It just doesn't equate in my thinking at all. It's madness. It's barbaric, it's insensitive, and it's completely unnecessary. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get me on that one. Yeah. I just love animals, you know. Here's one here, look, poppers.
Yeah.
There's somebody there in America, pop chops. Yeah, over there, look. Eh? Yeah. Who's that? Now, why would you want to kill her?
That's right. No, I understand.
You know, and what's the difference between her and any other animal? You know, they all think, they all see, they all hear, they have fears and gladness, and, you know, they have families. You know, why kill them? It's mad.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. So you went back to England and then. So you thought about, you know, what I'm doing next, and then so Edgar,
like I said,
email, you know, sending you letters
in the paper,
right? Yeah,
and this band phoned up. I put in an advert saying multi-instrumentalist because, you know, I've always played loads of things. I get a kick out of learning new instruments. So at that time I was playing keyboards and lots of different types of woodwind, and apart from singing and stuff like that. And they phoned and said, oh, they wanted somebody to pack up what they were doing. They'd signed a deal with CBS and they'd had one album out, which was a good album, actually. So I went and had a rehearsal with them and they offered me the job. And, you know, basically I thought I'd take this job to save me having to go back to Germany. But it turned out they were more popular in Germany than England, so we went straight back to Germany. So that didn't work.
Oh, God, man.
You know, we were playing every night, you know, late 60s, early 70s. You know, it was non-stop in them days. You'd be playing one night in England and the next day in Germany or France. We had a #1 in France, which I wrote with the singer.
Wow.
And we never flew anywhere. It was, you know, in the van all the time, you know.
Were you guys getting paid enough to survive?
Sorry?
Were you guys getting paid enough money?
Well, I always had a wad of pound notes in my pocket. I never had a bank account. So I guess I had enough money to buy bread and cheese now and again, but I never got any royalties. A #1 in France and no royalties. I don't know where the money went.
Yeah.
Somebody got it, but I didn't. No, I never got any royalties at all.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, they've just re-released Steamhammer, that same album I did 50 odd years ago. They've re-released on a label called Repertoire, who's a company that, you know, pick up stuff from years ago. And it's doing quite well. And they're paying me royalties at last. So not very much, but at least it's okay now.
Gotcha. So now Edgar Froese found out you're still living in Germany. And what you keep trying to bring you back to with Klaus Schulze to the formation of Tangerine Dream, right?
Yeah, he wanted me to come back to do stuff with this record company that he'd managed to find.
Yeah.
But like I say, I decided I'd had enough of Germany, so I joined Steamhammer.
Yeah. My God. And then feel free. So you were touring with at the time when you were with Tangerine Dream and with Klaus Schulze, and in 1978 you to work on the album called Cyclone, which is a very good album. And now I understand your email address, the TD78.
Yeah. I thought I'd try and make it simple, and for people that still follow that album, it's sort of
it's a very good album, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it worked. You know, at the time, like with most albums at that time, I used to be a bit despondent when we'd finished and thought it wasn't quite right. But, you know, after a year or two, you look back and you think, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I mean, that album developed from lots of ideas. You know, I just kept trying ideas. You know, I was really the mainstay behind that, because a lot of the thinking for Edgar and Christoph, they were a bit pissed off with what was going on and left me to it a lot of the time. So I did tend to take over a bit on it, but which probably upset people a bit. I didn't mean to particularly push towards the vocals. It was just one of the ideas. And Edgar said, oh, yeah, I quite like it. Let's keep it, you know. So we did. That
was the first time I think Tangerine Dream have used vocal and lyrics, right? It was kind of revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because I think it sort of worked because the vocals are all improvised, you know. I mean, I write lyrics the same way as I write music, and I just write what comes straight into my head as though I'm sort of copying it from some other worldly power. And so it comes out pretty nuts, but it sort of works for an instrumental band, I think.
Yeah. No. I really like. I know there is. I read somewhere some criticism on the internet about, you know, Tangerine Dream being known for electronic music and vocals. And anyways, I don't care what everybody else think of that. it's a very good album. I really like it, man. And it was,
Oh, I'm glad you do.
you know, you
It's
listen
nice to
lyrics
know.
and the music, and I like it. I don't care what everybody else think. Or, I mean, either I like
Yeah.
it or I don't.
Oh, you know, you can't please everybody, and
Yeah, of
everybody's
course,
on their own trip, aren't they? You know, like I've always said, listening's an art form. You know, and the listener's looking for their direction, the same as the musician is, and I quite respect all that. You know, so it doesn't concern me if somebody doesn't like it.
No, of course not. So after that, you know, after Tangerine Dream and Steamhammer, you end up playing with other people's in between side projects, right? Between, I don't know, 78 and 83, I think, right?
I was trying all sorts of things. You know, I'd formed a couple of bands and, you know, tried lots of different ideas, but nothing really. I think it was basically I was destined to write solo stuff. You know, I think that was the only thing that was going to please me. And I sort of understand that now. And over the last 40, 50 years, I've just developed that style of composition that expresses what I feel. And that's what gives me satisfaction.
Yeah, and then in '83 you released your first solo album. I think it's called Journey Out of the Body.
A bit
right?
before that, actually, it was almost the same year as I left TD. Just after '78, I released Journeys Out of the Body, which basically I wrote during an experience I'd had with astral travel, and I just writing this stuff, you know, out of my head and thinking, well, nobody's ever going to release it, you know. I'd already tried to get a deal with Virgin, and Richard was very keen. You know, he said, "Oh, put him in the studio and all that." But his cousin, Richard Draper, I think, no, Simon Draper, was very, very difficult to deal with, and I ended up just giving up on it. But then I started doing this Journeys Out of the Body, which was basically just all done with a Pro One, you know, which is a little monophonic synthesizer and a Revox tape recorder, 4-track, little TIAC, and an acoustic piano, little upright piano. And I was just about to shelve it, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, you should send it to this company. They're into, you know, weird stuff." And I thought, oh, well, okay, I'll just try one company, send it off, and they sort of, about a month later, they wrote back and said, "I packed up your tape to send back to you because I just couldn't make any head or tail of it." And then I thought, well, I'll open it. And he opened the package and listened to it again and completely changed his mind and said, "No, I want to release it." So that's how it came out. And he said, "Have you got anything to go with it?" You know, and I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, it's some writing or something." I said, "Well, I've kept a diary of the astral experiences." He said, "Great, write all that down. We'll put that in with it." So it's got a diary in with it of, you know, all the experiences I was having at the time that I was writing the music.
Yeah.
And that set me off. And, you know, they wanted another one, which I did, Japanese Butterfly. And after that, I just kept going. It was one every year, you know, still it's about 50 now. So.
My God, man. Yeah. You always like, Steve, do more solo work than being in a band? You prefer to be like a
I can't quite hear you. I have to speak up, Claudia.
No, yeah. Do you always wanted to be on your own, like having your own group?
Not particularly. I loved, you know, like with Steamhammer, it was an amazing band. You know, I just loved playing with them. The excitement on stage was fantastic. You know, it was blues based and very powerful. So I did enjoy that, and I just enjoy it. I love music, so I enjoy playing with anybody that's, you know, doing something that's interesting. But I think the trouble is I have very specific ideas emotionally that I want to express. It's only really ever going to work by concentrating on my solo stuff. Right. You know, I'm always open-minded to try other things, but, you know, as you get older, it's sort of like it's become ingrained now. I enjoy it. It's a discovery. You know, it's like a diary. I always say my music's like a diary of my life. And every year I'm looking at a different direction and discovering new ideas. And of course, with equipment, I've always loved the tech in gear, you know, and getting new stuff, which is what I'm doing now with this audio modeling things with a company called Swam. And that will be the next album that's going to be very much dominated by the audio modeling instruments, which the last album, I forget the names of the bloody albums, there's so many of them. Sent and Returned or something, I think it's called. Lost and Returned, that's right.
Yeah.
I started using stuff from Spitfire with the MIDI wind instruments. So that sort of was the beginning of it, really. But this company that's called Audio Modeling that does this SWAM stuff, it's just mind-blowing. It's so much like the real thing. It's incredible. So no samples, you know. It's all done with algorithms.
Yeah. So after
I find all that stuff interesting. You know, I find discovering new things fun.
It is important to you to keep on working on your own and try to do things your own and express yourself, find your way. And
you'll have to speak up as clearly as you can because I've got rain coming down on the roof.
Yeah, no, that I'm saying that you enjoy more exploring your own ideas that come to your head and keep on working on your own style instead of perhaps going to a band. You will get, I don't know, you will like it for a while, but after a while you say, no, I don't like the direction where the band is going and I want to do my own thing. And that's what
it's a different thing, isn't it? With a band, you know, you've got a lot of other people to considerate, right. And they are, you know, they've all got their own ideas, and that's what makes a good band because they all come together and it all joins up and comes out as something total from everybody. But you know, then you've got all the politics of getting people together and the traveling and the, you know, so in the end I don't get out as many ideas as I'd like to. And working on my own, I can really get deep and concentrate on something. I think about things a lot, you know. At night I sort of lie awake and I enjoy thinking and working out directions and problems, if you'd like to call them that. I enjoy the whole direction of it. It's not much different to somebody writing a book, really. It's the same sort of thing. On doing a painting, you just get into a discovery of a new idea that you've had, and it's fun. You know, I enjoy it. It's still enjoy it after 50 or 60 years. Sure. You know, so it's obviously with me till the end.
Yeah, absolutely right. So if you haven't stayed with Rick Davies, you would have joined Supertramp, and then your life would have gone into completely different directions, right? So
it would have been completely different, the same as it would have been completely different if I'd stayed with Tangerine Dream. Yeah. And I often think about that because, you know, it was disappointing for me that we didn't carry on because I think we started something new. Yeah. And we should have developed it. So I found that a disappointment. But then again, if I hadn't have left, I wouldn't have concentrated on my own direction. I just wouldn't have had the opportunity to be that selfish, you know.
Sure. But by the way, I heard that Klaus Schulze is not doing that well. You know, physically.
No, I've heard that. I think he's got kidney problems, isn't he? I think he's on a dialysis.
Yeah, he's on a dialysis.
You know, I went to visit him a while back, and we did some music together.
No, I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we did an album called Meditation. Yeah. Which I did at his house in Hamburg. Yeah. But I'm sorry to hear that. I've always liked Klaus. He's a real gent.
Yeah.
And I wish him well.
Yeah, I'm in touch with other people, and I wanted to interview him from the show, and it's not possible either. You know, he's not doing any interviews at all. Video
Okay.
or audio or written, nothing.